the question is, one wonder why is it that some state governors are still not being transparent? Because one would think that when you run into trouble like this, one of the things that you ought to do is be able to open up. Yeah. How much is really coming in? How much has the state been able to say, well, this is locked, this is even taken before it comes to the state? How much you're able to spend and why it is that they're not able to pay salaries? Because the workers have a right to know.
That's part of, I don't know what to, I don't want to use the word that some of the governors are not, well, I mean, they're indisciplined. That's just the word, because it borders on irresponsibility, really. Because we have a fiscal responsibility law which guides financial transactions. And the fiscal responsibility law, which most states are supposed to enact, it has been enacted at the center, and I think some states have done that too, tells you what you have to do with regards to disclosure. Most of them don't follow it. Even when it comes to their annual reports, I think only one state government, maybe there are others, that have been consistent in publishing their accounts, Kano. Consistent over the years. They will always, even they even publish the...
I wonder why their name popped, the state popped up as part of the 13 states that are yet to provide details to the National Bureau of Statistics.
But they have always been publishing their accounts every time. I mean, they have been consistent.
That is in spite of the government, in spite of whoever it is that
they have been consistent. Kano State has been consistent in publishing that. Now, coming back to your question, the fiscal responsibility law expects every state to provide budget reports, either monthly or quarterly, or which, of course, the House of Assembly should take up and then use it to question the governor or what have you. Now, but I don't know, I mean, there's a sort of people not abdicating their responsibility, one way or the other. Either the legislature is not doing its work, or the governor is taking advantage of the fact that most people don't know about the budget. Because people still feel that the budget is still casting this, the budget is supposed to be like ABC, just like the household budget. There's nothing so sacrosanct about it. The days where you keep all the information close to your chest and then you disclose it at the annual budget, something, it's gone. In fact, the preparation of the budget is supposed to be participatory.
Solution.
You're already heading to solutions. Okay. I was still with the cause because I'm looking at, the House of Assemblies, shying away from their responsibility, for instance, saying, well, maybe because they're in the same party, they do not want to upset the apple cart. Well, this apple cart is already upturned now because the state government cannot pay debts and everybody or pay their salaries, and everybody is asking what exactly the government, and by this they mean the governors and even the legislature as well.
Maybe the lawmakers will be more attentive if their own allocation was part of what comes in, but they're independent of what goes on in the state.
How much of this is politics? How much of this inability to pay is politics?
Well, I don't know whether it is, because a governor that has, take Osun for example, it was disclosed that the state has not paid for the past 8 months. It is not another party that is forcing it not to pay, but it's because the governor or the government or the state government has gone on an expenditure profile that it cannot maintain. It has a lot of programs, employment this, employment that, graduate this, rural that. Some of them very laudable. But then, no matter how laudable the programs are, you have to also think about paying for it. Now, if you cannot pay for it, then you come out clean and say to people, look, this program has to be scaled down because of lack of finances. But you cannot just go on and then come back to affect expenditure which are supposed to be non-discretionary.
That brings me to this other question, because the APC also spoke about how they wanted to provide, was it free meal for students in school during the campaign. So I'm wondering, in order to fund that project, now that we have this cash crunch, because I remember some were even saying, look, government was borrowing to pay salaries, that's the federal government. How can they execute that program of theirs if they still intend to?
Well, there are two ways you can do that. One, you have to do budget reallocation because, as somebody has said, there are a lot of leakages. So you have to, I mean, there are so many programs in government that are fragmented, there are duplications, and you know, I mean, if you look at some of the, you know, and nobody's even controlling the funds. I mean, you can take, let's take three particular agencies, NAPEP, although it's been proscribed, MDG, SMEDAN, Nigerian Directorate of Employment, SURE-P, and whatever. If you look at their programs in detail, they are more or less implementing the same programs. So using the same money. So that, and that is characteristics of the public sector, fragmentation and duplication of activities. Even the mandates are conflicting in most cases. So you've got to clean out all this mess. You know, there must be a direction of role, you know, direction of aims and direction of purpose, or clarity of purpose.
All right, because I mean, they've not even spoken about what happened to that subsidiary investments fund that states had, what they did with it. But so many questions really about this one. But one thing that sticks out here, you talk about fiscal discipline. So if different institutions have stuck, they stick to their roles, we may not find ourselves in this situation.
Yeah, we may not do so, and it also requires political will. Because if you look at the Olaseni's report, you know, which looked at all the parastatals, we had over 200 parastatals, and it has come up with some sort of recommendations. So then it depends on the will of the political class, that is government, to be able to recommend some of the recommendations. Some of the recommendations were rejected, some were taken. But the new government can revisit some of the recommendations and then look at which ones can be accepted, which ones cannot be accepted. Some parastatals had been slated for prescription and some had been slated. So we need to really, as I've said, do some sort of budget reallocation in order to reduce leakages. And of course, the government can also create what we call fiscal space, not by borrowing, but by through other means.
By tightening up their strings.
Sorry?
By tightening up their strings.
Yes, they can tighten up their belt.
Some of them are selling off some of their property and vehicles. Is that necessary? Would that help in any way?
Even the government?
Yeah.
Well, whether they don't. In fact, the government, first of all, will start with reducing the excessive number, excessive in the bracket of political appointees and what have you. I mean, I just said excessive, you know, so because we have so many. Somebody made a good suggestion recently, is it Soludo or something like that, said, look, the Constitution says you have to have one minister from each state. There's nothing which says you have to do that. Why don't you just select 15, 20 people that you think can do the work for you, irrespective of the states? But you can still look at the sensitivities of the appointments, you know, to make sure that at least they all come from the geopolitical zones. Okay, rather than one from each state. And then you also have so many appendages like senior special assistant, this and that. You've got to come down to brass tacks and say, we don't have the resources to do that. So you need, in other words, you are reducing indirectly cost of governance.
All right, I have to thank you for coming on. Professor Olaseni Akintola-Bello is the team leader, European Union support for federal governance reform. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away.